Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for the third episode in our series on servant leadership, a deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking about self awareness. Who are you? So, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get started, we are going to play a quick disclaimer from the U.S. Department of Education.
This resource was developed in 2024 by the Nita M. Lowy 21st Century Community Learning Center's 21st CCLC National Technical Assistance Center, NTAC, funded under a grant from the U.S. Department of Education Department and administered by Synergy Enterprises Incorporated under Cooperative Agreement Number 287E230009 with the Department's Office of Elementary and Secondary Education. Opinions expressed herein do not necessarily reflect the position or policy of the Department, nor does mention of trade names, commercial products, or organizations imply endorsement by the Department or the federal government. This resource is in the public domain and is available at 21stcclcntech.org. Authorization to reproduce it in whole or in part is granted.
Awesome. So now that we have played our quick disclaimer, we'd like to present ourselves. My name is Yana List, and I am a TA liaison with the NTAC team. And I come from a background as a school day, after school, summer educator, and project director. And I am joined by my colleague, Hillary.
So Yana, it's a pleasure to be here. Welcome to each of you that have already joined this conversation previously. And for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Hillary, and I come from a background of running out of school time programs for a number of years, as well as working in the school day setting. So Yana, passing it back to you to get us started.
We are ready to get started. But we want to introduce NTAC, and we want to share with you our vision and mission. So the reason that NTAC exists is uh, it is an initiative from the U.S. Department of Education to provide best practices, evidence-based resources, and professional learning opportunities to build the capacity of 21st century stakeholders to support underserved youth and their families. So we really exist from the national level, working with SEAs, program leaders, and frontline staff to help create the best possible 21st century programs for our nation's youth. And we're really excited to partner with you and to be part of the process to create excellent programs. Now, for today, our objectives are to define self awareness and its role in the workplace. We are going to identify individual values, needs, and goals. And we're going to learn some strategies for improving self awareness. And so we're going to do that by cultivating self awareness using the freedom diagram. So to do that, we'd like to really start with just a little bit of self-reflection, and ask you to just really think about who are you. So we'd love for you to share with us, who are you? What are your values and characteristics in the workplace? For example, I would describe myself as diligent and dedicated and committed. You can share with us by writing in the chat box, or you can find the annotation tool, which is probably along the top of your screen. And whichever one is easier for you, you can share those with us. And we'd love to hear from you. And if you're sharing them in the chat box, I will make sure to add those to our screen. So let us know just that description of who you are in the workplace, how you would describe yourself.
Yana, this list is adding up quickly. We've got a really wide variety of what people see themselves as they think about who they are and that place where they're a leader.
Yeah, I just want to point out some things I've seen. So there are a lot of people who are describing themselves as committed, and I am not surprised by that at all. Because we really see that we care about our kids, we care about our programs, we care about our staff. Dedicated has popped up a whole bunch of times as well. Again, I don't find that surprising at all. Encouraging. So that sounds like something that's going to be really important for those of us that are leaders, because we want to get our staff really excited. We want to get our staff, they need to feel like they're supported. They need to feel like they're valued in the workplace. So it sounds like we are seeing a lot of those kinds of skills, but those are not the only ones, of course. Oh, I see hopeful. That's a really great one, because we want to really see a great future for our students, and that's going to really depend on us being hopeful and really working towards a better future. I also see that we have some participants who have described themselves as reflective. I love that, because we always have to both think about the things we do well and take some time to reflect on the things that are areas of growth. We want to constantly be growing and reflecting on our skills, reflecting on our needs. Those are great ways to do that. I see team player, which is a great one, because we are all working as part of teams. Even when we are leaders, our team includes all our staff, and we want everyone to feel like they are part of the process and they're an essential part of making our projects and our sites successful. So we see a wonderful diversity of descriptions, but again, seeing some of those repeating themes, and those are probably some of the themes that really make us uh, incredibly successful program leaders. And I'm sure many of you would describe yourselves in that way, which is wonderful. So thank you everyone for sharing some of those characteristics. And being able to describe yourself is, no surprise, part of self-awareness. And so we are going to be talking about what self-awareness looks like in the workplace. And part of that starts with that kind of self-description and that ability to explain what you already know about yourself. But today is a deep dive. So let's start with kind of the definition of self-awareness. And the definition of self-awareness is the knowledge of perception of a situation or fact, consciousness, recognition, realization, perception. So really a strong understanding, a consciousness of who you are, where you are. And so really thinking about the situations that we find ourselves in. And that really represents kind of the broadness of self-awareness, and really how it applies to ourselves in every part of our lives. So with that in mind, now that we have provided kind of that general definition of self-awareness, I also want to bring your attention to the self-awareness wheel. Now, the self-awareness wheel is a great tool for describing what you have to think about and what you have to kind of be conscious of in order to be self-aware. In other words, um, what it feels like to be self-aware, because there are many components of self-awareness. Now, awareness is just being able to observe what's going on inside and around you. And it's just sort of that observation skill. But you also want to be clear. Your mind shouldn't be clouded by a lot of different thoughts and distractions. You just want to focus on yourself. You want to be open. So that means being curious about the environment around you and open to hearing new things. And receptive. So you appreciate and want feedback from others. Part of self awareness is not just your own observations of yourself, but being willing and open to hearing some feedback from others to help enhance your self understanding. Peaceful, so not anxious. You want to be accepting of who you are and really be just observing without judging. And finally, you want to be calm, so not emotionally aroused or upset, but rather just kind of calm and thoughtful. Now, when we're talking about self awareness, there's a lot of things you want to be monitoring, 4 elements you want to be monitoring. And the elements of self awareness that you want to be able to monitor is the cognitive element of self awareness. So you want to be aware of your thoughts. You want to be cognitive. You want to have self awareness of your senses. So, taking information in about the environment around you, your surroundings, using your senses, excuse me. You want to be aware of interconnection. So, you want to be aware of the people around you, the relationships you have, sort of your place in the environment. And finally, self awareness also includes that physical awareness. So, how your body feels inside and out. Are you in pain? Are you tensing up your muscles? Or are you very relaxed and calm? And so this self-awareness wheel, both in on the inside gives you a kind of that perspective on the emotions that we would like to cultivate and feel to help with our self-awareness. And on the outside tells us what we need to be aware of and sort of trying to observe. And this whole tool comes from Dr. Dan Siegel, and it's been studied and validated in a whole lot of different environments. So this is a great model of understanding all the elements of self-awareness. Now, the reason we're talking about self-awareness and the reason that self-awareness is so important is because there are a lot of benefits for self-awareness in the workplace. Now, the first part is just well-being. So staff who build self-awareness through workplace training programs report greater workplace well-being, enthusiasm, and contentment. So when our staff develop that self-awareness, in particular self-awareness in the workplace, they are just in a better mood, feel more confident, feel more supportive, and feel more successful. And we, of course, want to cultivate those positive feelings in order to help our staff both be even more successful and to keep them interested and engaged in working in the out of school time environment. It's also important for cultivating an appreciation for diversity. So staff who go through training and develop self-awareness demonstrate a greater appreciation for diversity of opinions and backgrounds, and an appreciation for that diversity in the workplace is essential because it helps build camaraderie, maintain positive staff relationships, make your workplace a positive and inclusive place to work and to be, because we want to appreciate all the staff that bring to the table and all the different skills, backgrounds, information that we bring to the table. Now, self-awareness also has benefits for communication. Because staff who engage in training on self-awareness communicate more effectively because they have greater awareness of their own needs and a greater understanding that every individual has unique needs in the workplace. So by understanding our own needs, we can see that everyone has those, and we should cultivate an understanding of the needs around us. And we have already talked about about listening in this series, and Self-awareness is something that will make your staff even better listeners. And finally, we are going to cultivate confidence. Self-awareness can help your staff develop a stronger sense of identity and appreciate their unique gifts and strengths. And that increased self-awareness will help them to build confidence and over time help them to see themselves an essential part of your workplace. So with that in mind, we've sort of now developed some of that understanding of self-awareness. Now we are going to do another case study. So those of you that have participated in this series already, we have met Maria and learned a little bit about her experience in the workplace and helped support her so far. And today we're going to reunite with Maria to learn about how self-awareness impacts her in the workplace. Over the last several sessions, we've seen her need for listening and empathy. And as she applies those strategies, she can improve her implementation of those skills as a leader. For those of you that haven't joined us before, we are going to be talking about Maria. She is a program director at Sunshine Youth After School Program. You're going to be learning about her and the program as you review this case study. And once you've finished this case study, we're all going to come back together and we'll ask a representative from each group to share what they discussed and what their conclusions were as a group. Now, in this case study, you're going to be reading the case study, you're going to respond to the questions, and you're going to select a group member to share out to the whole group. We would prefer if the group member was not a host, but that is going to be up to you and your group. We are going to be in 4 groups, so we are going to split into those in just a second. And in those groups, we hope that just as we have in all these sessions, really cultivate really meaningful conversations. So we are being sent to those groups right now.
Hi, Kristen. We're in breakout rooms right now doing a case study, so I'm just going to go ahead and assign you to one of the rooms.
Hello? I must have got kicked out of a room as well.
Oh, no. Okay. Let me get you back in one.
Thank you.
Oh, it looks like you were going to go into room 2. Did anything pop up for you?
I didn't see anything popped up.
Okay. I just switched you to room 1. Did anything pop up for you to go join? Still nothing appeared for you? Victoria? Oh, there we go. Hi, Shantina. We're currently in. Oh,
All righty. Thank you everyone for your active participation. Thank you everyone for your active participation in those breakout rooms. I believe we're now ready for a little bit of debrief.
Yeah, absolutely, Yana. So I would love to hear each of the groups share a little bit about what they talked about, and really would love to hear you hone in around how self-awareness connects to some of these other components of servant leadership that we've discussed, right? The listening, the space that we're trying to create for that where it's active, and in this case, the self-awareness and just making those spaces. So, do I have a volunteer to go first? Nathan, you're up.
Bear with me. I gotta tackle about 5 minutes of conversation in a small summary. So, we had kind of a broad reaching conversation around, kind of, I think one of our group members mentioned like life is just sort of catching up to Maria, and just getting really, really heavy. And all the different things that she's taking on because she sort of feels like she has to, um, is really starting to get the best of her and starting to show up in different ways. So, that's sort of really starting to manifest itself in, like how she's showing up for others and how that's impacting them and their ability to show up to work, and contribute to the goals of the organization. There's also a question around like, well, how do all these things that she's taking on align with her goals, either as an individual, or as her, or as aligned with the goals of her professional work in her organization? And at the end of the day, is she ever really taking time to sit and reflect on the stuff that she's taking on, how she's showing up to work every day, how she's interacting with others, and maybe taking a pulse of, how all these things that are leading to burnout are really impacting her in all the different ways at work. So, how did I do, folks? Did I summarize it all? If I missed something, I'm sorry.
I don't know, Nathan. I was in that group and that sounded a lot like what we talked about. So thank you. And we got some other awesomes from our team. So, one of the other groups, we'd love to hear from you. Well, while you think about whether you have something to share, I think one of the things that was meaningful as I think about this case study and as our group thought about this case study was actually going back to this image and saying that really what we don't see is her making that space for observing how what Maria is doing is impacting those around her, where she doesn't have that opportunity for that clear thought, what Nathan called reflection, right? But instead, all these distractions around the work that she's doing because of all of the other things that are calling Maria's name. And really, there's not space for being receptive, right? Being in that space where you can hear from others because she's so busy, she's short in her responses, that being peaceful and calm. And so I think that Nathan expressed that very well for our team, but I also thought it was helpful for our group to go back and look at that image. Do I have anybody else who's willing to volunteer? If not, it's okay.
Hillary, I will tell you, no one in my group wanted to volunteer, but so I will volunteer myself. I wanted to share that we also went back and talked about that wheel, and in particular, having that calm really came up in our conversation. One of our group members suggested that really Maria needs some time to take some deep breaths to help her have some of that reset to come back to some of that calmness and peace, because it sounds like she's so overwhelmed with so many responsibilities, some of which might sound really familiar to a lot of us, and just having some time for deep breathing might help kind of reset that kind of high level of anxiety she's kind of experiencing right now because she has so many responsibilities and stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michelle sharing that they talked about leaders having empathy for their staff, but also needing to be empathetic to their own needs too. I think that's huge, Michelle. It's really easy to say, take care of yourself, and then I'm not going to take care of myself. And our group talked a little bit about that. Charlotte talked a little bit about that, those leaders trying to take on and own all of the things in my group as well. So yeah. And Yana, I will say that I'm pretty sure Nathan got voluntold by someone else in our group to be the speaker. So I think there was some appreciation for what Nathan shared. But that said, I want to talk a little bit more about what these types of self-awareness are. And so as we think about Maria and as we think about self-awareness overall, there's this internal self-awareness of how we understand ourselves, our values, our passions, our thoughts, those feelings, those behaviors, those areas for growth. And we recognize that Maria is lacking that internal self-awareness of taking the space, having the peace and calm for her own thoughts, her own feelings. But then there's also this external self-awareness, understanding what the people around you think about you. And Maria recognizing the impact of that, where she's at personally, is having on the young people and the staff in her program. And then really leaning into that. And so one way that we would like to share with you to think about this is a tool or a framework by Dr. Tasha Eurich, and that there's 4 archetypes of self-awareness. And so these 4 types are the introspectors. They're clear on who they are, but they don't necessarily challenge their own views or search for blind spots by getting feedback from others. And so this can be harmful to relationships or limit their success. Then we have the aware group. They know who they are and what they want to accomplish. And they, unlike the introspectors, they seek out others' opinions. This is where leaders begin to fully realize the true benefits of self-awareness. Then we have the seekers. They don't yet know who they are or what they stand for, or even how their teams see them. As a result, they might feel stuck or frustrated with their performance and their relationships. And if I had my best guess, I actually think that this might be Maria. And there could be some arguments that she might be an introspector a little bit, but I think she doesn't yet know herself in order to be able to see why she's having these challenges with her team. And then we have this last group, they're the pleasers. They can be so focused on appearing a certain way to others that they can overlook what matters, right? They want to have it all together all the time. And so they don't make that space to think about and care for themselves, make that space to lean into their own work. And so over time, they tend to make choices that aren't in service to their own success and their own fulfillment. And so I would say that all of us fall into one of these 4 archetypes, and really there's strengths to each of these, and there's areas for growth in each of them. And so I'm going to ask you to grab your annotation tool again and just put a sticker, a stamp on one of these that you would say, this best reflects who I am at this this is most closely the one that I identify with at this point. So grab that annotation tool. You can put a little check mark or a sticker stamp, whatever it is, and say, this is who I think that I am. And as you think about that, I would love to hear from one or two of you, or you can share in the chat if you'd rather not unmute, but how did you select where you said you are? So if you find the bar at the top, likely at the top of the screen, there's a little pencil that says annotate, and you should, when you click that, it should open another small toolbar. The star is the symbol for the stamp on Zoom, and it'll give you some options, including those checks, a little stamp arrow, star, a heart, whatever you choose to use. If you can't get the annotation tool to work, you're also welcome to just share in the chat what it is that you're hoping to include. But I'd love to hear from those of you who did answer. How did you select which one you think is the right fit for you, your personality, where you're at now as a leader? How did you land there? Charlotte, go for it.
Okay, so I've been doing this for a gazillion years, and because I'm old and crotchety. And I think when I first started, I sat around waiting for other people to tell me what I should be doing. Even though in my heart, I kind of knew what should be going on. And as I found myself in leadership positions, and I started really young. I mean, I was a director in my 20s and pretty much stayed that way. I realized that beyond just what work I do, I felt I always had to mentor the staff below me. And if you never share responsibilities, if you never create a group dynamic with the people working with you, they'll never grow. And then we never create the leaders of the future. So I ended up being really understanding myself as well as wanting other people's opinions, because not one person can do it all. And I think that's how I found myself in this aware category, but did it probably pretty early, like in my early 40s, and have just stayed that way from then on. And I find myself just having a team that becomes like so wonderful that they think of what needs to happen before even I do.
Charlotte, I know that's the goal of servant leadership, right? That's how we want to get to that place where our team, where our people around us are empowered and they're more independent because of the investment that we have in them. That's it. That's what it's all about. And so I think that's a huge one. I also appreciate some of you, Kristen, Victoria, who are sharing that it kind of depends on the day where you land. And I certainly relate to that for myself. I think it depends on whether I'm operating in the place where I'm leaning into my strengths or where I'm allowing the work around me to take over and to walk in much more my weaknesses. And so I think that those are very powerful answers too, and a place to recognize that in my strengths, I may be in my in a place personally where I think that I'm aware, but when I get overwhelmed or overloaded, that I land in some of those. And so as you continue to think about yourself, we want to talk about your spark, right? It's the thing that brings you to your work. And one of the things that we know about Maria in our case study is that she really does love this out of school time work. And she believes in the power of education to transform the lives of our young people. And yet at the same time, we also recognize that Maria has had some great places that she's walked. But for Maria, contribution is the sparks that give her, is the spark that gives her career meaning, right? There's 4 general ways that you can identify the spark for your career. And I'd encourage you to think about this for yourself, but also to consider sharing this or talking about this with your team, because when they know, when they understand where their spark is, they end up in places where they're so much more committed to their work. And so we're going to explore these 4 sparks: so curiosity, creativity, connection, and contribution over the next couple of minutes. And so the first one is curiosity. And curiosity can really take many forms. Maybe you try a new activity with students. It's a learning opportunity, attending something where you get to dig in, where you get to explore a new strategy or a new approach for how you're going to provide feedback at site visits, or how you're going to engage with the youth you're working with. It can look like asking your colleagues how you're doing at your job. It can be that expanding your professional skills through online or in-person professional development, for finding that thing that you need to know more about. One of the things for me personally is I decided to go to graduate school because I was like, I have all these questions that I need somebody to answer for me, right? I had things that I just didn't have people around me who could speak into, and I wanted to grow and learn in those areas. The next spark is creativity. It's finding that place both in your career and your personal life where you're creative. And so whether you love drawing or writing or finding some way to express yourself, or solving novel problems. And this can be in the workplace, it can be in your life, but those are places and spaces where we get our creative juices flowing, where we try out new solutions and keep our mind open to what the possibilities are. The next spark is connection, right? And there's many potential sources of connection in out of school time. You may particularly value the connections you form with young people in your programs, with your staff, with families, or even the broader community through partnerships and outreach efforts. I had a conversation with a state leader in the last couple of weeks, and they were talking about their connection with 3 or 4 other state leaders who their states all touch one another, and that they've built this little group that texts back and forth all day, every day, about the different things that they're working through. And connection really is an important driver for many of us, because we're humans, right? We're innately social. We have relationships, and we need relationships to help us identify our place in the community. And some of us, really, really for all of us, that's an important part of who we are. And so this state leader, their group has developed even a name for themselves. This is who we are, what we call ourselves as this group. But finding those places and spaces are an important part of what helps us in our career, in our community. And then the 4th piece of our spark is the contribution. Many of us, because we're out of school time leaders, get meaning from helping others. If that's you, give us a thumbs up in the chat, right? You may get meaning from the investment that you're making in the young people, whether it's directly standing in front of them on a day-to-day basis or the tangential connection. And so maybe you love mentoring staff young adults who are growing up into this field, who have potential and you can see it in them. Maybe you enjoy your investing in the young people directly, or you make a significant contribution to your community through volunteer work, really a variety of things. But it's that contribution that you get to make that feels powerful, and that is part of what and why you do what you do. And so I'll ask you to answer a quick poll for us, and we'll launch it in just a second. We would like to hear from you which of these categories is the best general description for the spark that drives your career in out of school time. What is it? What drives you? Why do you do this? Give everybody just another moment so that answers can get dropped in. I think that's probably just about it. We're pretty close there. So I'm going to end this poll for us and share the results with you. But one of the things that you'll see is for so many of us, it's that connection, right? It's the connection with the people that we get to invest in, whether it's other educators, whether it's families, whether it's youth. For many of you, we also see a really high answer in the contribution, right? You get to and want to make a difference. And I don't know about each of you, but for me, it's hard to pick just one. And really, there's multiple aspects that for me are part of that creativity. So thank you for jumping in on that. And so one of the ways that you can use this and think a little bit more about your spark is to reflect in that interactive space. And so one of the things that you can do with your staff or with your young people is to do a spark interview. And so we are going to look right now for a volunteer. I have 4 questions for you. And so I would like somebody who's willing to do a little interview, talk to us about your curiosity, your creativity, your connection, your contribution, and volunteer to answer a couple of questions. I know, it's brave. Natasha, you're willing? Unmute yourself, you're up.
Yes, I'm willing because technically I'll have to drop off the call soon, and I wanted to say it's been great and I enjoy it. So let me do this, and hopefully it compensates for my early departure. But if I can catch it again in the future, I definitely will.
Well, we're here every other Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And so jump in whenever you can join us. We love to have you. But I'll start with my first question in this
Sure.
interview. Oops. Okay, here we go. So the first question continues to disappear on me. What's one thing you would like to learn about in the next 6 months, and how are you going to learn it?
One thing, anything, or
Yeah, go for
okay.
it.
So, speedboat racing.
Okay.
I would love to learn more about it, and I actually plan to connect with a group that I've met recently to explore being able to participate.
Very cool.
What it takes, all of the I want to go down the rabbit hole of speedboat racing.
Very neat. So my next question for you is, what are opportunities for you to cultivate creativity in your program design? Where are they? How do you engage in creativity in your 21st CCLC program?
Okay, sure. So for me, it's mainly never voluntary when it comes to creativity. I'm usually, people say I'm very creative and value my ideas and suggestions, but I never proactively connect based on creativity. It's not a spark for me. I'm usually selected and then I am happy to engage and contribute, but proactively, but you didn't necessarily say proactively. You just said, where are the opportunities for me to cultivate creativity in my program design? So I guess my response to that is just to continue to be open to that participation and to connect with the teams and the other creatives within my program to support them.
Very cool. Thank you. And then the next one is, what are your most meaningful relationships in your program?
What are my most meaningful relationships in my program? Those that are fueled by a sense of operating in excellence and accuracy and truly wanting to make experiences better for everyone as a whole would be my answer.
I can see why people want you to be part of those creative conversations then, right? Like, don't you want someone who wants to operate in places of excellence? Part of the conversations about how do we make this better? How do we improve what we're already doing?
Yes.
Okay, last question. How does your program make the world a better place?
By building strong foundation, by assisting or helping to build strong foundation for children. So because I'm working within the 21st century program office within the Florida Department of Education, I think we're very integral to the lives of children, which are our future leaders and matter.
Yeah.
So that's
100%.
my response for that one. I'm a
Yeah.
woman of few words.
No, that was perfect. And so I come back to the idea of the Sparks interview for the group, right? How could you use something like this in your program? What do you learn from or take from that? I think about Natasha's answers, and much like I said, like, I understand why people want Natasha to be part of something. And if I was new in that role, in a role where I was Natasha's supervisor, answers like that would tell me exactly where to put her, where I wanted her at the table, right? To make sure I engage her in those conversations. While maybe if Natasha was a program leader, I'd be like, okay, Natasha, what kind of activities can we be offering young people around speedboats? Like, how can we make this really engaging STEM programming and letting our staff use their passions to lean into what we're doing around in our program spaces? Because when we're passionate about it, then we're improving the quality of what we do. And for young people, especially in those places where we struggle with retention, with engagement, if the staff are excited about it, oftentimes our young people are too. So, yeah, I
Well,
encourage you. Yeah, thank you.
yeah, I was gonna say thank you so very much for letting me share, and you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you. So I encourage you all, take questions like these, use them with your staff, use them with your young people. Of course, with your young people, you might shift them a little bit, but still ask them about their curiosity, their creativity, their connection, their contribution, right? So that you can dig in and see where your young people are at. Another way to do this is through the freedom diagram, and Yana's going to talk to you a little bit about that.
Great, thank you, Hillary. So another way to think about and develop your self-awareness is to use a tool called the Freedom Diagram. And so this is a great tool that is really to help you think about your skills and identify the skills that you most want to develop and most want to cultivate in your life. And the freedom diagram has 3 sections that ask you first, talent. What are you a natural at? What are you already great at? Fun. What is something that you really enjoy doing? And demand. What is a skill you need for work? Because there's a demand for it. And we want to find the intersection of these 3 elements, or at least 2 elements. And that will tell you a skill that you want to or that will help you identify a skill that you might want to cultivate. So I can give you an example of my own freedom diagram. So as far as talents, I am really good at math uh and I really am good also at programming. And fun, I really enjoy writing and I really enjoy doing research. And a demand in our field, there's a lot of demand for evaluation, for doing data-driven decision making. And so I have found kind of that intersection, something I'm working on developing and always working on and focusing on is doing evaluation and writing reports for programs about their data. So using statistical analyses and writing reports for them about what are areas of strength and what are areas of growth. So that's one for me. Of course, I have other skills and other things that may be more or less related to work. But that is one where I'm really thinking about something that is really useful and productive for the field and for my position and focusing on developing those skills. And so some of the ways I developed those skills is, first I went to grad school and I got a master's in statistics and I learned how to code and program. And I spend a lot of time doing research and reading articles to learn more about doing external evaluation. And I cultivate relationships and get to know other people doing the same kind of work so I can learn from them. And a lot of that just comes down to practice, doing that writing, doing those kinds of statistical analyses to develop my skills. So that's my example of finding that intersection and finding the area where I think I can have a greatest contribution to the field. Now, what we would love all of you to do is grab a piece of paper if you have one handy. And we would love for you all to draw your own freedom diagram. And the purpose of this activity is to explore the skills that you want to focus on and to really get you thinking about how your program can benefit from your skills. And we want you to really take a few minutes to complete the freedom diagram yourself, and then identify what you want to cultivate and share that in the chat box. So grab a piece of paper, draw a Venn diagram, and write down what are some of your talents. Now, I just shared one, but please don't limit yourself to one, the things that you think you're really good at. So I would describe myself as really good at math. I would also describe myself as really good at public speaking. And I would describe myself as someone who's really organized. So thinking about all the things you're naturally good at. I just shared one, but please don't limit yourself because we all have so many talents that we bring to the table. Hillary, as people are writing and working, do you want to share your own freedom diagram?
Sure, absolutely. So I think one for me, as far as demands, is I do end up doing a lot of public speaking in my work. Yana and I do a lot of the same types of work. And so you shouldn't be surprised to hear that one again. I think that I have a talent and skill around being able to explain things and provide both like the practical application thereof, as well as the like scenarios and really helping people think about it critically. And then I think one fun one for me probably is that I like to learn to do new things, and I'm always on a mission to learn to do new things. And so one of the areas though, Yana, in that I want to and want to cultivate and want to do more of is leaning into just building some of those skills around things that I'm not so comfortable or familiar with, and willing to do some of that. We've also got a good answer in the chat. So Ginny says that some of the talents are math, science, art, writing. And so I can certainly see how all of those then connect with demands that we have in out of school time space, right? We have those challenges that our work presents to us.
And Hillary, Sharon shared that her talents are that she's really creative. She loves to explore. So it sounds like she has some of the curiosity. She's great at tutoring and writing and math. And we're hearing from Ginny, who already shared that her talents include math, science, arts, and writing, is that she finds it really fun to facilitate leadership training. She really enjoys facilitating STEAM activities, as well as visual arts and choral music. So it sounds like she's got a lot of talents that very, very clearly align with the work happening in her out of school time program. Tanya describes herself having talents in dancing and talking, and she's a great listener, and she is a great mentor. So finding those talents, self-identifying those talents is so valuable, because you can then think about, what do you want to cultivate? What do you want to develop in particular? So if you're already a great mentor, and honestly, mentorship is something that there's a lot of demand for in our field, especially many of our programs employ either high school students or college students, or just really new to the workforce staff. That's something that there's also a really great demand for. So that's something that maybe, Tanya, is great for you to cultivate, thinking about, okay, so I know I'm really great at mentorship. Are there particular approaches to mentorship that you want to cultivate and want to develop more of? I also want to highlight the fact that one of the things we've already talked about in this webinar today is we want to be self-aware, but part of self-awareness is also being open to feedback. So we have asked you all to think about what are your areas of strength and what you find fun. But it can be a great idea to ask your staff, what do you think my talents are? Or even more for demand, what do you think you need from a leader? Or what do you think we really need in this program to be more successful? And those can become things that you cultivate and things that you practice.
Absolutely, Yana. I think another way that this tool can be really powerful as people think about what they're going to do is that I have found that sometimes when I work with staff, they struggle to identify their own areas for growth, or even where to start when they think about goals. And so helping them identify this matrix of the talent, the demand, and the fun, and then talk about where are you going to lean in and what are you going to continue to cultivate, can be a powerful way to think about and to help them think about things that they may need to grow and areas they need to grow in, particularly when you have younger employees with less experience around that kind of a process of goal setting. We want to help our young people be intentional about it, our staff be intentional about it, and use things that are valuable for them as they develop their personal themselves personally and professionally.
Mm-hmm. So as we are filling in and we're hearing from so many participants, Zandrell reports being really good at planning and organization and the arts. Those are, again, things that are going to really come in handy in the out of school time environment. Joanne shared that her talents include budgeting and communication, really enjoys sports, nature, and outdoor activities, and there's a demand for field trip organizing. And I can already think of what Joanne should be cultivating. Joanne, not to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like if you love doing nature and outdoor activities and really think that there's a space to focus on field trips, one of the things that you can cultivate is adding more field trips. And so that is going to include a whole bunch of those skills of needing to plan, to budget for field trips, to figure out all those logistics. That might be something where you want to really think about developing your organization skills, if that is potentially an area for growth. If anyone else wants to share by coming on the screen and sharing out loud, we would love to hear from you. I am going to also ask one of our other staff to unmute yourself and share her own. Brittany, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about your own freedom diagram.
Thank you, Yana. So I've got my little paper here. Oh, wait, you can't see it. So some of my talents include music and cooking, creative things, and teamwork. Some fun things that I enjoy overlap with talent. The making music piece and cooking, like I find very fun to do, but I also like spending time with my loved ones and being outside. The weather whenever it's nice, like just sitting on a porch, that kind of thing. And some of the things for demand that I have that I can see is like, I feel like I'm organized, but then sometimes I look and it's not as organized as it could be. So like, and like just like really like planning ahead for the future. I feel like I'm a good planner, but I always feel like it's not well planned out enough or thought out well enough. And so whenever I think about like how all those things overlap, I've always thought that I was good at time management, but I feel like it speaks to needing to be more focused in my time, so that I can make space for doing the things that I like to do and being able to be more organized and thoughtful, and in that way, ultimately just like bettering any project or thing that I might be working on, right? So it just kind of came down to focus whenever I looked at all the three areas.
Awesome. And I know those will come very in handy for our team, certainly in our work. I also want to take a moment. I know so many of you have done this important work. We would love for you all to hold up your freedom diagrams. We would love to take a picture. So if you can take or put your mic on. I'm sorry. Put your no, not mic. Put your camera on. I am sorry, guys. Words are not working. So we can see all of your freedom diagrams, and we can take a fun little picture. That would be a delight. Gonna give everyone a second to get their cameras on.
If there's someone who has a background on, if you try and put it in front of your body, you're most likely to get it to show.
Okay, just a few more seconds. Awesome. Love it.
I think we got it, Yana.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for helping us with that fun little picture. I think it's going to end up on our social media. We will share our social media addresses at the end of the webinar. So hopefully you are already following us, and if not, you can follow along on social media so you can keep up with all our updates. I do also want to just take a minute for those of us that are program leaders. If you are thinking about using this tool, I'd love to hear from you how you are going to use this with your staff, or if you are thinking about using it, how you could use it with your staff. We would love to hear from you, and if anyone really wants to unmute themselves, we'd love to hear from you out loud or in the chat box, whatever you prefer. If this is a tool that you think will fit in your program environment and in your professional development of your staff, we would love to hear from you. And I will let you all know that as we were developing this webinar and developing this presentation, I actually asked the different members of our team to create their own. And it was a little bit of kind of a bonding activity because we could all see each other's freedom diagrams. And also just a fun way to identify, oh, these are the skills that would really help our team to be even more effective and do this work even more to an even greater way than we're doing right now. So if any of you have any ideas, if you're thinking this is something that I would love to do in our program environment, we would love to hear from you either on camera or in the chat box. Just to get us all thinking about ways that this can really apply in our environment, because we as leaders are not the only ones who need self-awareness. As you might recall, when we mentioned at the beginning of the webinar some of the benefits of self-awareness, there are a lot of benefits for our staff, and that might be something that is really you want to cultivate in your program environment and start to develop self-awareness skills to help your staff be really successful and feel confident, cultivate some of that diversity of opinions and backgrounds in your environment. So developing self-awareness can be a great opportunity for both you and for your staff. So if you're thinking about integrating self-awareness into your program, we would love to hear from you in the chat box how you're going to use it, or please feel free to unmute yourself as well.
Yana, I think much like the Sparks interview, doing an activity with this with any of your team is valuable and is an important part of helping them think about the impact that they have on young people, on families, on the other staff in the program. So I think that's valuable.
Yeah, Hillary, exactly. And so we have talked about and used a couple of different tools during this webinar. These are certainly things that can apply to your program that you can use at your next staff training, or do some more thinking about how you're going to integrate it. And so really some of the next steps that you can follow is, first of all, taking some time for some self-reflection. Maybe you did a lot of it already today. It will be great if you can do some self-reflection after this session. What gives you meaning in your program environment? You can also think about doing at least one activity or one action that will help you spark curiosity, creativity, connection, and contribution in your job, in your program. So really thinking about creating even more meaning for your program and taking some time to really contribute in a whole diversity of ways. So how can you bring some more creativity to your position? How can you, what are you things you're curious about? Maybe you came to this webinar because curiosity is important to you. You really love learning. That's something I love and something that brings me back to this work all the time because I get to learn from so many people doing amazing work. So curiosity is definitely my spark. But take some time, try to do something that will spark these kind of feelings and this sense of confidence. And with that freedom diagram that we use today, you can create a plan for if you've identified something that you really want to cultivate, a skill, a practice that you really would like to cultivate, make a plan for how you're going to develop that. So are you going to do some additional training? Are you going to create kind of an accountability plan for yourself? Are you going to add or take off some of your responsibilities? Maybe delegating is something that you need to practice and you need to cultivate. So make a plan for identifying what are things that you really need to do and what are things that you can pass to another staff person. And finally, one of the things that we talked about today is the importance of seeking feedback. So it's wonderful when we understand ourselves, but thinking back to those 4 archetypes, we also should be curious about what other people think that can help us deepen our understanding of ourselves and become even more self-aware and start thinking about what we want to develop in the future. So this is our 3rd webinar in our 10-part series, which I know is a very long one, but I'm so glad we get to dive into all these pieces and really dive into those 10 pillars because it's so much information. So we would like to take a moment to take some time for reflecting on this series. So far we've talked about listening, empathy, and now self-awareness. So we have discussed the first 3 pillars of servant leadership. How can these 3 pillars work together to make you a more successful leader? We would love to hear from you in the chat box. Meanwhile, Hillary and I can share our own paths. And so I can share with you one of the things that is, I think, helping me to become even more successful, especially a big part of my job is preparing these types of webinars. So when I create a PowerPoint, I always pass it on to at least one other staff member. And so I try to take the time to listen and really care about that feedback. And sometimes that requires some self-awareness when a fellow staff member tells me, Yana, this activity didn't really work so well. That requires me to be accepting of that feedback and say, you know what, you're right, let me recraft or let me ask for help. And so that requires empathy, in particular for myself, because, it can be really easy to get frustrated with yourself when you don't do something perfectly. So being able to have empathy is so valuable. Whatever your ideas are, we would love to hear from you in the chat box, or if you'd like to mute yourself and let us know out loud to the whole group. How do these 3 pillars make you a better leader? What is their role in your life, in your career right now? Hillary, do you want to share yours?
Absolutely. So, Yana, I think I'm going to think and lean into my time and spaces as an out of school time leader. And I think one of the things that really is important is that as I listen to the things that my staff bring to the table and create space for compassion for the things and empathy for the things that they're experiencing, I then have to determine where and what is my ownership? What's my responsibility to that? And then how can we move forward in ways that are effective in supporting that work for that staff member that I'm listening to, right? And I say we because I have responsibility for it. But there's also sometimes things and places and spaces that I don't have responsibility for, and yet I still, right, I don't have responsibility for it in that it's not mine to own, yet I still need to provide support for that person, right? I need to lean into that. Joanne says these pillars really help you communicate with your team better. And when you listen to them and have empathy by knowing how you feel personally, then it'll make it easier to come to an understanding and reach mutual goals.
Awesome sauce. Thank you, Joanne, for sharing. If anyone else wants to share with us, please do so in the chat box. We also want to highlight our social media links so you can follow along with us. You can always email us at info@21stcclcntac.org. You can join our newsletter. We won't spam you. You'll hear from us about once a month about what's going on with NTAC, special events coming up. You can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, at 21st CCLC_NTAC, and on LinkedIn at 21st CCLC NTAC as well. And we have those QR codes so you can head right to those links so you can follow along with us. I also want to highlight our new website, 21stcclcntac.org. And we're just going to spend a couple of minutes on the website so you can familiarize yourself with everything we have to offer. And this is a really exciting place to access some of our wonderful free resources. So first, under that first tab, who we are, you can learn about some of our leadership under About Us. So you can just learn about all the staff that are involved in making this wonderful program come alive to you all. You can also click for, if you scroll back up, you can click under our resources. And so this is great where you can first hear about professional learning. And so we, in addition to doing these webinars, we have a lot of self-paced courses that you can use to learn about different topics. There's a few already on the website and more are coming very soon. And we're going to be launching a whole bunch over the next few months, including a couple of mini courses. This webinar is related to our Become a Leader mini course that takes about an hour. And we are sort of going from what's in that course to a much deeper dive. So we're expanding on that, but we have both that that self-paced course. We also have a whole bunch of micro learnings. These are much shorter training modules that are less than 10 to 15 minutes long on a couple of different topics. Trauma-informed care, which I know is a really essential topic for many of our programs. We also have these amazing toolkits, and each toolkit includes a whole bunch of customizable tools that will help you to become a more effective leader, to guide positive student behavior, and to develop really meaningful summer programs. So again, we only have these 3 toolkits online so far, but there's a lot more coming soon. And our training kits, these are tools for training your own staff. So this is something where if you need to plan a staff training, but you don't have a lot of time, or you're just not sure what to do, our training kits include a pre-prepared, really detailed PowerPoint, any relevant tools, all the information with really detailed notes are there for you. Download that, customize the PowerPoint any way you want. You can delete all of our branding, put your own on it. Say you created this PowerPoint all on your own. Feel free. Everything we do is in the public domain, so you can take it, change it, do anything you want with it. This is a free service for you provided by the Department of Education to help make our programs even better. So If you haven't headed to our website yet, now's the time. And really, it's a great opportunity to follow along all the amazing things that are coming up in the next few months and the next year. So hopefully you follow along with us. This is part 3 of a 10-part series. So we will hopefully see you in 2 weeks on April 1st for the next part of our 10 Pillars of Servant Leadership series. That episode will be focused on healing, so you don't want to miss it. It's going to be very exciting. And so there's a lot of really great work coming from us in the next few months. If you haven't clicked on our feedback form yet, we would love for you to click on that. We would love to hear what we do well, how we can improve. We want to make sure that this is a really great resource and service for all of our participants. So Hillary has shared that feedback form. Please click on that. Take 2 minutes to let us know how we're doing. And we really appreciate the time you've spent with us today. And we hope to see you again in 2 weeks. Hillary, it is a pleasure as always. Oh, Hillary, I said April 1st. I meant May 1st. I apologize. Whoops. Where has the time gone? I can't believe it's April already. So hopefully we will see you on May 1st. And thank you all for being with us. And we will see you again soon. Click on that link to fill out your feedback form. And Hillary, it's been great.
Absolutely, Yana, as always, it's a pleasure to be with you and with this group and just have such a reflective group together, just to have some of these conversations and think about what they're doing. So I appreciate it. One more plug for the feedback form. Please let us know how we're doing. We're glad that you're loving these webinars, and we hope you all keep coming back. So thank you all for being here.